All right, welcome back to the Dirt Road. I'm Mike. This is Rick.
What up? That's our farm.
That's our farm. The hidden one in New York City.
Welcome back to our weekly headlines, right, Mike? We're doing headlines today?
Yeah, we'll do headlines today.
This is pretty cool. We had fun with this the last time. I give Mike 5 headlines that happened during the week. This is the week of August. What the hell's today's date anyway? The 15th? 13th?
I think so, yeah. 15th.
I don't know, somewhere mid-August. And I give Mike a few headlines.
14th.
The 14th. All right. So I give Mike a few headlines that have happened in the last few days and see his off-the-cuff reaction because he has no idea what I'm going to tell him. And then we're going to do the second video, the same thing in reverse, where Mike gives me 5 headlines that he came up with. So, you ready? Mine are all about this campaign, though.
Oh, okay. That's a good place. Listen, that's what's
well, they're all related.
That's on all our minds right now, right? That's
I mean,
really on everybody's
honestly,
mind.
between now and November, that's
yeah.
Well, I mean, you know how I feel. I think the most important thing going on in the world right now is the war in Ukraine, but that's related to the election too.
Well, yeah, because depending on what happens in this election, it'll determine what happens in the war in Ukraine.
Sure, and the policy's going to change one way or the other because Harris will bring her own people in, obviously, if she wins. And,
yeah, it'll definitely change.
It will change. So the first one I have for you, just a little on the, I guess, silly side, but that's Trump. So
It can be, yes.
So Trump decided to start beef with your boy, Joe Rogan.
Oh, really?
By the way, Rogan, watch out. We're the fastest growing podcast in the history of the world. We're going to catch you. Yeah. Did you hear about that?
I did not hear about this.
So
this I didn't know about.
So let me, since you didn't hear about it, I want to make sure I don't screw this up. And somebody in the comments say, you got a word wrong. You got a word wrong. So let me find exactly what he said here. So apparently Joe Rogan, just on his podcast, was talking off the cuff. And he said he likes Bobby Kennedy. He didn't say he's voting for Bobby Kennedy. He didn't endorse Bobby Kennedy. Just say he likes Bobby Kennedy. They were just, I forget who his guest was. And he said about Bobby Kennedy, quote, he doesn't attack people, he attacks actions and ideas.
Yeah.
But he's much more reasonable and intelligent. He's the only one who makes sense to me. That's it. He didn't mention Trump, he didn't mention Harris. He just was talking about Bobby, and that was his comment. So then Trump
One after him
goes on his Truth Social and says, it will, quote, it will be interesting how loudly Joe Rogan gets booed, in all caps, the next time he enters a UFC ring. Donald, Joe Rogan's not getting booed in the UFC ring. He's just not. But anyway, that's my comment. I wanted your reaction. What do you think of that scenario, Mike?
I don't think Joe Rogan said anything out of line, honestly. I get it. Though, I mean, Trump's like, he's fighting this fight right now. He's pouring everything he has into it. They're attacking him at every level. So I guess he feels just like he's a little more sensitive maybe, and he's beaten on it. But I can't imagine that, I don't think Joe Rogan will get booed, honestly. I think Joe Rogan, I don't think he said anything that was out of line necessarily. Look, Bobby Kennedy is reasonable. He does attack just policy and things like that. That said, he's very far left in most things that I don't like. Abortion up to birth and so many other things I just don't agree with. I mean, some things I agree with, some I don't. But but that's Trump though, right? That's like his signature. He hits back always. That's just the way he is. He just hits back always. He did that before he ever ran. He's done that consistently throughout his runs.
But
I don't think it hurts him.
But he didn't get hit. So what is he hitting back? Like, Rogan didn't say anything about him.
I think for him, he feels like it's an attack. But also, he's in a position where, I mean, if you look at his position right now, all the lawfare, all the media against him, all the attacks, and it's been that way for, 8 years? Almost coming up on 8 years. So, the guy's a little raw. So maybe he's a little sensitive. So maybe he shouldn't have hit at that. I wouldn't have hit at that. But I can understand why he did. But it just seems like a non-issue to me. I wouldn't have said anything. I think Joe Rogan's a great guy. He's very intelligent.
Sure. Absolutely.
You watch his podcast, and it's just the broad spectrum of everything. Like, the guy does everything from, like, ancient aliens to, modern politics, right? He covers every base on that podcast. He does everything really in-depth. He does it really well. I don't see why you hit him. But, again, he's probably pretty raw at this point from everything that's going on.
Maybe so. I just find it so petty and so stupid,
too.
And it drives the narrative in the direction that Harris and the press and everybody wants it to go in, which is off. The focus is off Harris. So when you start first of all, Joe Rogan's not getting booed. I don't know what Donald Trump thinks. Joe Rogan is phenomenally popular in the UFC. Number one. Number two, even if Joe Rogan did endorse Bobby Kennedy, so what? That's his right. Find something else to do. He's had a bad couple of weeks. Harris has had a good couple of weeks. Why go in that direction and do something and just have a stupid argument over what?
Well, Harris is having her honeymoon period because the media is coming out in her favor. So the media now. So if you watch the media recently, right, the New York Times has put out all this like information now saying, oh, you know what, Hunter Biden was selling influence, and this was going on, and this was this, and this was that, and the whole idea is they're burying Biden and Hunter Biden to try and push Kamala up to make her look like she's the better choice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So like somehow, you know, they're trying to reinforce that narrative. So they're giving her her honeymoon. It's media that are doing that. Harris hasn't changed, you know, and the fact that she's coming out. Yeah, I know, and it just drives me crazy because like the fact that she's coming out now saying, "Oh, well, I can fix the economy and fix this and fix that." No, you could have fixed it now.
Okay, but Mike, that's kind of my point, Mike, is that's where Trump should be.
That's where Trump should be.
Narrative.
Absolutely. No,
Instead
I agree.
of getting into because I know people will say, "Oh, it's just one comment," but when the media takes this one comment, you know, Trump gives it to them, and then they blow it out of proportion. But then that's where the conversation is, and not on Harris's flip-flopping or policy or the fact that we have no president right now, you know, things like that.
Right, yeah.
And it just, you know, I know you said this is who he is, and you know, it was cute and it was fun in 2016 and the nicknames.
It was fresh and new, and it was kind of like, oh, it was like a kind of, you know.
But Mike, I don't know.
But at this point,
you got to grow up. Not
I
you.
mean,
you know, he's got.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Listen, I don't do the fanboy politics thing. I never understood it. You know how people become like these like sycophantic followers, like this guy's like the next coming of Christ or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never did that. I never understood it. I don't do that with sports either. Like I just don't see how. Like I'm not. You know, it's a man, same as me. You know, he's accomplished. He's obviously accomplished a lot in his life beyond all the politics and everything. He's a very accomplished person, a very smart guy. But I don't get the fanboy stuff. That to me is like, I don't know. It's just foreign to me. I don't understand it.
I agree, but to me, being a Trump supporter.
It's like
me too. But I'm saying being a Trump supporter to me is like being a parent of a teenager. You love him, but you want to crack him in the fucking mouth almost every day, you know?
Well,
just
he
shut
says crazy
up.
shit. I mean, he says crazy shit sometimes, but you can't argue with his reason. Like, you know, we'll get into the other stuff later. But yeah, it's.
But the good part is that Rogan didn't take the bait, and he's.
Rogan's not stupid. He's
No,
not going to get into a pissing match with the guy. He has no point. There's no point to it for him, and he knows that. It's not going to help him.
No, and he has no time for that crap anyway.
No, I mean, look, that guy's got, you know, he's another one who's very, very successful because he puts in the work, because he's consistent, because he does the kind of things that need to be done to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if more people actually model their behaviors after somebody like Trump or Rogan or these other people, even RFK, and not in the adultery sense, but in other ways.
No, I love Joe Rogan, and I think it's a shame that we have to put him out of the first place slot at some point when we catch up to him and surpass him, but still love him.
Listen, he can have second or third. Him and Tucker can fight it out for second and third. You know, that's what they can do.
This one's a little bit more important,
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
You know, the last one was just a goofy thing, but there's also campaign oriented. Do you remember back in 2004 when Bush was running for re-election? And gay marriage was a big thing back then, right?
Sure,
and
yeah. It was on the, yeah.
And they put it, the Republicans wanted it on as many ballots as possible in states for the people to vote on, because at that point, the public was generally against gay marriage, more in favor of, you know, quote-unquote civil unions. So the Republicans wanted these on ballot measures out in 2004. They thought it would bring more conservatives out and help Bush get elected. Bush did get reelected. Maybe that was partly because of that, maybe not. I don't know. But now it's kind of gone in the other direction, and it's the left and the Democrats. They're trying to get abortion measures
on the state.
Yeah, on the state ballots, hoping that that'll drive out their base. So this week,
it's proposal
Missouri,
was proposal 1 in New York for the November
well,
election.
yes, it's been on New York, but 2 new ones this week. So Missouri and Arizona got amendments to their constitution on the ballot, to amend the constitution to guarantee the right to abortion up to the point of viability, because both of those states, especially Missouri has a pretty strict abortion law right now. So, you know, with Roe versus Wade being overturned and everything, and now this has gone to the
Back
states.
to the states where it belongs.
Do you think that this can help the Democrats? Do you think this is, you know, we'll talk about it politically first, I guess, before we get into anything about abortion itself.
Sure.
Politically, as someone who ran a campaign, you would know more than I do. Do you think this is something that might help them?
Sure.
You do? Why?
Yeah. Single issue voters, you know, because what they're going to do is they're going to frame it, right? So it's all about, like, framing for the campaign. It's how you frame the language. It's not even about what you intend to do, and that's what's sad, because it should be about what you actually intend to do. But for most political campaigns, it's about framing the narrative. which is exactly what the media does, right? With Harris, they're Harris's honeymoon now. Now she's suddenly the greatest thing since sliced bread, and 6 months ago they hated her. You know, it's the same idea. They're going to take abortion and they're going to say, oh, this is an attack on women's rights. It's an attack on civil rights. It's an attack on, you know, morality and decency and the ability of somebody to not have to suffer through whatever. And they're going to paint this horrible, terrible picture of the other side with it, right? They're going to use it to cast everybody on the right as being these horrible, you know, fear-mongering religious zealots that are trying to interfere with your ability to have, you know, your bodily rights.
Oh, sure. That's been their talking point the entire time.
And that's all they're going to do. They're going to bring that right back, and but now they have it at the state level. So now what they're going to do is use it as a push at the state levels. Because, I mean, presidential elections are nothing more than 50 state elections. That's really what it comes down to, right?
Exactly.
So they're going to use this issue to bring out their base in those states, in every state. They're going to use this issue to say, listen, this isn't a national referendum anymore. Now it's really personal to you in your state. We need you to get up and vote in your state because it's your state that's trying to, you know, get rid of this or is trying to bring this back or whatever the case might be. So they're going to use that to force their base, kind of fire their base up and get their base out and moving and voting. So they might actually see a percentage pump in the numbers of people who maybe normally wouldn't have come out to vote might actually come out and vote now because that's on the ballot.
Yeah.
So it's a way of drawing people out. But it works both ways because now you're going to have the pro-life people in those states as well going to come out just to make sure that they vote at the very least against that. And if they're voting against that already, they're going to vote whatever they vote normally, Republican, whatever.
Yeah. It just seems that the pro-abortion, and they don't even call themselves pro-choice anymore, the pro-abortion groups, they seem to have the wind at their backs right now.
Well, they have the media helping them.
Well, sure. I mean, but they always do. But, you know, they have their wind at their backs right now because of Roe versus Wade being overturned. But there's kind of an irony in there. You know, my pro-life stance is about as pro-life as you could be. You know, you don't get more pro-life. But
life is sacred.
Say again?
Life is sacred.
Yeah, I agree. But the weird thing is that all these years we always wanted Roe versus Wade overturned, all of us in the pro-life community, so to speak.
Put it back to the states.
And I always remember something somebody told me when I was training to learn how to do arbitrations. And they said, be careful you don't lose by winning.
Sure.
You could win the argument, you could win the arbitration, but what comes out of it, the precedent that's set, could oftentimes lead to bigger losses, right?
Sure.
Or generate bigger losses.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if overturning Roe versus Wade may have ended, because I don't think the numbers of abortions are down in America since Roe was overturned. The states that have the more strict anti-abortion laws kind of always did. Like, they went from having very, very few abortions to none. But it seems to have invigorated or reinvigorated the other side, the pro-abortion side. And I'm just wondering if maybe this, you know, wasn't as great of a thing as we in the pro-life community thought. You know, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thing to me that with Roe versus Wade being overturned and it going back to the states. And look, if I had it my way, Mike, I wish the Supreme Court would rule that the 14th Amendment applies to unborn babies and that they have the right to life, period, end of story. Screw this state voting stuff. Because, you know, if something's immoral, and this would go for anything, I'm not just arguing my point on abortion. Anybody out there, you, me, anybody out there, if you have an issue that you think is morally wrong, why vote on it, right? I mean, people should not be able to vote on life or, you know, something right. Anyway, regardless, that's off on too much of a tangent. But I do find it kind of interesting because I'm almost feeling like since Roe versus Wade has been overturned, our side has kind of been on the losing side in a way. You know, we've been
we took
on
hits
the
from
defensive.
Well, yeah, we took hits from it. But again, that comes back to the whole narrative forming, right? And being able to push that narrative. You have a complicit media on the left, right? They're very, very left-leaning. Very left-leaning. So they're going to always be favorable to that side of the argument anyway. So that kind of works against us as it is. So that gives a little bit of wind to the sails of the left on the pro-abortion side. And on the right, you have, you know, well-intentioned people, but some of these people really are out of their minds. So they say things that are completely beyond any scope of, like, normalcy, you know? So the argument is this, right? But when you boil it down, it comes down to this. You know, is it right? Is it moral? No, it's immoral. You're taking a life, right?
In my opinion,
you're taking a life. It's a life. Right? I mean, if we found a one-cell organism on Mars, we would consider that to be alien life, and that would be life, right?
Sure.
So how is one cell in a mother's womb growing not life?
No, Mike, believe me, I'm not.
I know
this is for
the audience. This is for the audience.
Uh,
So I'm making a point here.
Yeah, sure.
So if that's the case, and if we're willing to say scientifically that one cell on any foreign planet, on the moon, on Mars, whatever, is life, but one cell in a mother's womb does not constitute life, no. You know, listen, I don't really like Bill Maher for the most part. It's not that I dislike the guy. I think he's actually an intelligent guy. I think he's a reasonable guy to a certain degree.
Too.
He's a reasonable guy, and he's like a classic. He's more of a classic liberal, but he is somewhat left on a lot of things. You know, he came out recently. He said about abortion. He said, you know, he hates that they call it, you know, a fetus or whatever. He's like, call abortion what it is. He's like, it's murder.
Yeah, I heard him say that.
Right?
Yeah.
He talked about that quote where he called it murder, and he said, listen, just call it murder, and I'm okay with murder and this and that. You know, it's at least an honest statement, but it's the most honest statement you can make about it, right? And that fires people up. That gets people moving. You know, I think that it's not so much that we're losing that battle as the framing of the narrative makes it appear that way. So, like, a lot of things you see in politics are not really as big as they appear to be. You know, whether it's right or left, honestly, most of the time. It's really not this big movement you think it is a lot of the time. What you have is just a very small group of very loud people, and they have a complicit media on the left that helps them kind of frame that narrative and make it look like it's a much bigger thing.
So
it's smoke and mirrors.
So if you're right, and it is a small contingent, maybe on either side. I know I'm in the minority. I mean, I get it. Most people don't have the views on abortion I do, which is...
I think life is sacred.
It's
I think
a
it
life.
should be preserved.
Okay, so you agree with me, but
yeah.
I don't think most people out there do, and I get that, and I accept that. And I always thought that the only way for me to change that is to explain it and to, you know, like you just did,
yeah.
and try to get people to change their mind. But so if you're saying it's a small contingent, which I think you might be right,
yeah.
then does this, because this is the headline that it's on the ballot, there are ballot measures now, do you think that this will drive out voters?
I think they'll see.
The Democrats think it might.
I think it might. I think it'll work. I do. I think it'll work. I think it'll bring out some. Not many. It won't be a significant bump. You know, like you're not gonna change an election with this.
Even in a close state, you don't think?
Maybe if it's a 1% difference or a 2% difference at most.
Because Missouri's not a close state. Missouri's voting for Trump, but Arizona's
a swing state.
Close.
Arizona's a swing state, and Arizona has all kinds of other problems with their voting system. But taking all that aside, Arizona's going to be close regardless because you have a very, very even mix of conservative and Democrat there, Republican and Democrat there.
Yeah.
So, and you have a lot of centrists there, people who kind of go either way, a lot of independent people who
so
don't
you
really...
think this might help swing Arizona towards the Democrats?
Maybe. It might give them a point or two. It might give them just enough to take it. You know what I mean? It might give them just enough to take Arizona.
We shall see. All right, so that's headline number 2. Don't forget, guys, comment, right? I think it's...
No, we want to hear your thoughts on things.
It's right there, right?
Yeah, right down there.
Right down there.
Just, you know...
Comment. Let us know what you thought of Mike's responses there to the Trump-Rogan beef, as they say in the rap world. And and the abortion ballot measures being put on all of these states. To me, again, very reminiscent of 2004 when the conservatives were putting the gay marriage stuff on ballots.
Sure.
You know,
because
for the same purpose.
a lot of voters are single issue voters, or they find one issue to fire up their base, one issue that resonates across different spectrums of demographic to bring those people out to vote. So we'll see. Okay. I don't know that'll be it. I mean, I think the abortion thing was, it's obviously a hot button issue for a lot of people. But I think the vast majority of people want to see some reasonable approach to it. They don't want abortion up to birth, which is just murder. It's sick.
You know what, guys? Comment about your views on abortion. Maybe we'll do a video on abortion.
We can absolutely talk about abortion. We'll talk about the history of it and everything else.
Yeah,
absolutely, we can do that.
Because I'm not ashamed of my position. I do know.
Neither am I.
I know I'm in the minority. Even in the pro-life community, I'm in the minority.
Even during my campaign, I was vocal and honest about it. I didn't hide my thoughts on it.
Comment. I respect everybody's opinion. If you disagree with me, tell me. But keep it respectful, and maybe we'll shout you out if you bring up a good point, and we'll argue.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right. Number 3. Have you ever heard of this thing called Project 2025?
I've heard of this.
All right. So Trump disavowed this. Now, all this is basically a policy paper put out by the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah.
So it's a think tank doing what think tanks do.
Putting out their policy wishes. Yeah, they
get together.
It's their wish list. Yeah.
They get together. They talk about shit, and they put the stuff on paper. That's it.
Yep.
But I don't know. Maybe it was the title or something. The Democrats have kind of seized on this, and
they tried to make a conspiracy theory out of it. Yeah.
Well, not even conspiracy theory. Just made it a boogeyman.
Okay,
like without it, 'cause the stuff in there is the same stuff that conservatives have been
talking about forever
since the Reagan years, right? But I guess it's got this cool, memorable title. So now they're making it this boogeyman. Trump's going to come in and he's going to implement Project 2025. And I would guess, since you didn't even really know what it was, that 99% of Americans don't know what it is.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it through, though. I knew it was a policy
Well,
paper.
it's 900 pages. You ain't gonna pages. Rather,
I usually try to when I can.
You'd have to be pretty bored to read that.
No,
But
I like this.
Trump, and I know this is sounding like an anti-Trump video for me here, but I just think he's making so many mistakes in his campaign. He decided to disavow it, to disassociate himself from it. Now, there are things in there that I wouldn't agree with, maybe you wouldn't agree with, but I just feel like he's taking the bait so more often nowadays.
Well, I think part of that's his team, and then part of it's him. But what happened with this? I remember this when it happened. I remember seeing Project 2025 come out like months ago.
I think it was a year or two ago. Actually, it was written.
Yeah, it was written a while ago. I saw it maybe 3-4 months ago, something like that. Sometime in the spring, I remember seeing something.
Have you
about
heard
it.
the Democrats?
I read the cliff notes of it.
Have you heard the Democrats?
I saw
use it
some
as
stuff
the
with them
boogeyman?
using, like, talking about it, like, oh, it's about this and that, and really they weren't talking about anything that he wasn't planning on doing anyway, deportations and
Right.
reducing the Fed and things like that anyway. So.
Right. So the headline was now Trump came out against it, disavowed it, disassociated.
Right, so what
himself from
happened
it. So
was-
I'm asking, what do you think of that part of it?
So that part of it, from what I understand, what happened was somebody at that Project 2025 thing, not the actual Heritage Foundation, but somebody, I guess, handling that directly, that particular thing,
Right.
had tried to tie it to the Trump campaign in some way. So the Trump campaign came out and said, look, this is not directly from us. This is a policy put out by these people. It's
So
not
can you
something
just back up, explain that?
somebody actually associated with Project 2025, supposedly.
Like one of the writers or something?
Supposedly, yeah. I
Right.
can't verify if that person was or was not. But somebody came out and tried to basically tie this Project 2025 and put it out as Trump's policy. Like they literally tried to say, oh, here's Trump's policy.
But Trump didn't say it.
But Trump didn't say it. So the campaign came out and said, look, we did not put this out as our policy. So somebody was trying to kind of force his hand almost in a way, and like trying to force it on the campaign in a way, or tie the campaign to it in a way. And they came out and they said, no, this is not from us. We didn't write this. We didn't acknowledge this. We didn't endorse this. We didn't do anything with this. This is just a policy paper somebody put out.
So good move then by Trump, you think?
Yeah, because he's basically telling the truth. He's saying, look, and he didn't just, and I think there was I'm pretty sure he made statements about it somewhere, and I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but him making statements along the lines of, it's not that I disagree with, things in there or don't disagree with things in there, but I haven't read it. I don't know what's in it. I don't know what their intentions are, and I don't like being, force-fed something.
Well, one of the things in there I know Trump is not in favor of, and that's basically reforming Social Security. And he said over and over again that he doesn't want to touch that.
He
But
doesn't
it
want
just
that
seems
Social
like the
Security.
Democrats and, of course, their friends in the media have been able to kind of just make almost like they've done with MAGA, right? Like they
Make the title a negative.
Yeah, exactly.
What's what
so
they
you
do.
changed my mind there by your explanation. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Because at first I was thinking, why is Trump being such a little wuss? Even if
No, it was just because it wasn't his. Yeah, it
Alright.
didn't come out. He had his policy. His actual policies came out the other day.
right.
They've been out. His actual policy for the 4 years or for what he plans to do, the minimum stuff he plans to do. But Social Security, he's right about that. Social Security needs to be cleaned up a bit, and Congress needs to stop taking Social Security's money and put the money back that they took out of it.
Oh yeah.
There's no reason Social Security is going bankrupt. We pay into it on our checks every week and everything the rest of our lives, and then all of a sudden it's not there. Why? Because Congress wanted to spend it on some pet project
Yeah.
for a friend in their district.
And I think
No.
I think Social Security is the Republicans' version of the Democrats with climate change, right? With the Democrats with climate change, in 5 years we're gonna be done, and then 5 years, it's 2 more
it's going to
years.
go bankrupt.
So since
so stop spending that money. Put it where it belongs.
But since 1935, the Republicans have been saying
Saying it's gonna
it's
go
not going to be
bankrupt,
there.
yeah.
So it's this is, like I said, in my mind, like their version of climate change with the Democrats, where oh no, we didn't mean 5 years. It's actually 8 years, and then 8 years passes by, and they go, well, we meant 12, and that sort of a thing.
My issue with Social Security is we have it's just massive numbers of people in this country that are on Social Security, disability, that never paid into that system, right?
Yeah, sure.
So they collected and never paid into it, though. That to me is wrong. That to me makes no sense. Like
Listen.
that's a different thing. It's really not meant to be done that way.
I agree, of course. What you just said is fact. There are good government programs out there, and I think Social Security is one of them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
It is.
there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of things that it's not intended to do. But,
That's corruption. Yeah.
that's the way. Listen, I have no problem helping people who are destitute in any way, but the
Of course.
system is always taken advantage of, and that's what leads to the problems.
Let's sidetrack for just 1 minute, because I
Sure.
want to talk about that, because you brought up a good point to remind me of something. So I knew somebody that was living in public housing, right? And they worked
This is when you were a cop or a friend?
when I was a cop, and they lived in public housing, right? They were making about 41 a year in the city, and this is about maybe 5 years ago, right? About 41,000. So you're not making a lot.
No,
you're not living well in New York City.
For those of you who live in Nebraska, 41,000 in New York City, you can't survive.
And not even remotely. That's not even. You need double that at least to try and survive in the city. So she lives in housing, right? And she's making about 41,000. So her rent in New York City housing, your rent is based upon what you make, your salary.
Right.
Right? So
public housing.
Public housing,
yes.
Yeah, housing project. So she lives there, her rent's based on that, and she was just getting by. She wasn't doing well, she was just getting by. You know, she wasn't doing anything luxurious, she didn't have all this extra stuff. She was just getting by. Now fast forward and she gets a pay raise. She goes from 41 to 45,000.
Okay.
So 4,000 more a year. They raised her rent to the point where it would have been an extra 10,000 a year.
So somewhere between 40 and 44,000 was that line of demarcation.
Right, and it bumps her up by 10,000. So now she got a $4,000 raise, but she got to pay 10,000 more in rent.
So she got a raise and lost money.
Yeah, a lot more money. It became untenable for her.
That's New York City, guys.
And it became untenable, right? The problem with it is like our welfare system, right? And like our public housing system, right? They're all set up that way. But they're set up in such a way that if someone on on welfare, let's say they're trying, they hit a bad spot, whatever it is, they're trying to build themselves up. They're going to college, they're doing what they can do.
Right.
Good for them. God bless them. They should get that money. You should need to do what they need to help them. But once they cross that 25,000 threshold, they make 25,000 and under, they're okay, right? They'll keep their money and they'll be able to live and go to school and do what they got to do. Once they cross 25,100, they no longer get food stamps. They don't get welfare. They get no assistance at all. Everything cuts off.
So it disincentivizes you from
climbing up out of the ghetto.
Yeah,
it's just designed to keep them down. The welfare
not a good
system.
Thing.
No, it just reminded me of that, and I felt bad. I want to tell that story because I felt so bad for her because it was like, it was just wrong. She ended up moving to Ohio because she just couldn't afford it.
Yeah, New York is something else.
New York is backwards.
All right, so that's the third headline. Trump disavowing Project 2025. Mike educated me a little bit on that one there. Next one, Kamala Harris, your girl.
Oh, the cackling crazy.
Yeah, but it's funny. I'll give you the headline in a second, but to me, this is how great spin doctors are. In politics, 3 months ago, almost everybody considered her a cackling idiot, and they have now literally changed that into happy warrior. No, I'm sorry, joyful warrior.
Yeah.
They are so good, Mike. It blows my mind.
You know what blows my mind is it's not that they're doing it because what they're doing is obviously, it's obvious, right? It's obvious they're trying to do.
Of course, yeah.
But what blows my mind is how easily people take that spoon-fed nonsense. For either side, this has nothing to do with Republican, Democrat at all. Not at all. I don't want to see someone rehabilitated on the right when they're a complete dunce as much as I don't want to see it on the left. I want to see honesty, just an honest, straight, let me decide for myself what I think. Just present me with the facts. We can't get that right now. Well, you can, but you have to go very specific places to do it. But, it amazes me how many people just want to take that spoon-fed nonsense and just go with that narrative.
Well, politics is about spin, and these people get paid big money for good reason.
Yeah,
they did a good job with that one. I'll tell you that. They've really done a good job with that one.
That's what we talked about earlier. The media hype for her. So 3 months ago, Biden was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Right? He had no cognitive issues. He was perfectly healthy. He was sharp as a tack. Remember all those things they were saying? Mm-hmm. And then one day, Pelosi and them threatened him with the 25th Amendment. They forced him to step out of the race. Now it's Harris. Literally the next day, all of a sudden, Harris becomes, the savior. Yep. That's it. She's Christ reborn now as the president candidate.
It works, but the headline is Trump called her copycat Kamala.
Yeah.
Because she apparently took his
tip
on tax on tips.
Yep.
Idea, and she's running with that now. That is Bill Clinton triangulation at its greatest, right?
Yep.
What do you think of that?
I think it's it's pandering, right? Listen, they're going to adopt whatever they see with him, right? But in my mind, it makes her look like her campaign is weak, right? Because they can't even come up with their own original ideas to try and generate, these things in the base or get the base moving or understand the issues facing America. Because they don't care about the issues facing America. That's the problem. That's why they don't see them, because they don't care. Because they're so far removed from anything that anybody like me or you experiences that they just don't give a shit.
But do you think politically it's smart for her to have done that, or do you think it'll backfire? What do you think?
I don't think it really hurts her or helps her either way.
No.
I think it'll be a moot point at the end of the day. It makes her look like an idiot, And if they debate, he's going to be basically use it as a bludgeon at the debate against her. It gives him a punch to throw at the debate. if he wants to punch. But realistically, it's not going to hurt either one of them, one way or another. Because realistically, who are we talking about? At this point now, they're fighting for the middle, right? That's what they're fighting for. You have your people who are going to be on his corner. You have your people going to be in her corner already. If they're decided, they're already decided. And that's probably about, 60%, 70%. We say about 70%.
I think it's more.
Maybe 80.
Yeah.
But whoever it is, whatever the number is, doesn't matter. Who they're fighting for are those people in the middle. So maybe they like conservative fiscal policy, but they want a more liberal, social kind of policy, right? So they're kind of in the middle, and what it comes down to with those voters in the middle is that's where the single issue voter really comes into play, right, in an election. Because if they're not so against most things, but there's that one thing that's kind of keep them in the middle. So maybe they're fiscally, conservative, and they're conservative on most things, but they feel like abortion is a woman's right. So that's the one thing that keeps them in the middle and kind of leaning left a little bit, or maybe it's about taxes, and that's the one thing that keeps them, leaning right a little bit. So that's who they're fighting for. They're fighting for those middle voters, those independent voters. So, and do I think this is going to make a big difference in that? I think at the very most, maybe she negated his little bump with that. She might have stolen a little bit of a bump that he would have had for that policy. But realistically, I think a lot of people in the middle are very intelligent people, and they're going to see it for what it is. It's just pandering.
So I have a little bit of a different take on it. I think it was a better move on her part than you seem to do. I don't know how much it'll change or not, but one thing Trump has done brilliantly since 2016 is made the Republican Party into a working class party, something it hadn't been in a long time, maybe ever. And right now, she's taken that. It's not that she's taken the policy from him. Who cares, like you said, about that? It's just one thing. But the whole idea that people like waitresses, cooks, workers could vote Republican is basically a new thing. That's Trump's biggest. I think that's his biggest achievement for the party.
Sure.
Out of anything.
Sure. Yes.
Was getting
definitely.
those people there, and I think that and part of what the next headline is, I think the Democrats are trying very hard to take that
to
back.
turn the clock back on it.
Yeah. Biden made himself out to be Mr. Pro-Union and everything. Meanwhile, he breaks a railroad strike. So I think Trump was doing a good job of getting those people away from Democrats. I think a lot of those working class people, especially working class whites in middle America, was starting to realize the Democratic Party is not a working class party anymore. And they were moving towards Trump. And I think that that's part of the reason why she took that. They're not trying to get the waitress vote. The waitress vote's not going to, change the election, right?
No.
I think what she's trying to do with that is take the narrative back and try.
Well, that's exactly what they're
to,
trying to do. Yeah,
and
that makes sense. Yeah,
that's the way I see it. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But I think it looks like such a little thing. But I think it's part of a broader.
I think a lot of her
strategy on her part.
I think a lot of her campaign is being steered by the media to a certain degree, because whatever successes he has, it seems like they try and kind of paint her with.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so he comes out.
He being
Trump. So Trump comes out with this no tax on tips thing, and it goes viral like immediately.
Yes.
On social media, right? Like immediately, everybody's talking about it, and then you see the media kind of come around, and all of a sudden now it's her policy, and like it's almost like they're trying to paint her, with his successes. Like they're trying to kind of smear him at the same time as kind of sharpen her as the one who has this or whatever, So try and kind of give her his successes in some weird kind of way.
So I'm certainly
smart,
not. I'm certainly not going to argue that the media is not biased. They are, in
well, yeah, we all know
writ
that,
large they are. But I just think, I happen to think she's running. And just because I say this doesn't mean I'm voting for her dummies out there. I'm not voting for her.
No,
but
it's just
even
more
though
strategy.
I'm not voting for her, I can
It's about
compliment
strategy.
something. I think right now, and it's only a 3-week-old campaign, right? But I think these past 3 weeks, she has run a brilliant campaign, or the people running her campaign have run a very, very smart campaign. And like I said, I think there's a bigger strategy to this than just copying the tax on tips.
No, I think that's one piece of it. But like I said, I think it's more about them painting. They're trying to take the success away from him and paint it onto her somehow. They're trying to transfer that onto her, that success onto her somehow.
Right.
So it's kind of like co-opting it, But so I think that with her campaign, she hasn't had a lot of campaign.
No, it's only
That's
been
just
3
it,
weeks.
right?
Yeah.
And she's been hiding. You really don't see her out speaking a lot publicly. And when she does, it's very
wisely,
short
in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because she can't speak.
Well, besides that, right now she's got the wind in her sails. Why risk blowing it?
Well, I think the debates are what's going to hurt her in the fall.
Yeah, she's going to have to eventually give the interviews and
I
go
think
out
that's
there.
where you're going to see the real hits come. for
But
the
right
campaign.
now, if I were her campaign manager, I would tell her the same thing. I'd say, nah, just stay back. Let Trump shoot
short,
himself in
quick
his foot
sound bites and just pictures with constituents
until
and
the
stick to the.
until the polls start coming back, to earth,
Tight
and that
again.
bump and that honeymoon goes away. I'd shut her up too if I were her boss or I was her campaign
Because
manager.
you want to try and get it high enough so that when it dips, that still dips above where he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
All right, so that's
Strategy.
headline number 4, guys. That's
Sorry about that.
Kamala. Sorry about what?
The little rant. I was talking to them.
Oh no, that's all right.
We had a good rant though.
So we have 4 headlines so far. We had the Trump-Rogan beef. We
Yep.
have abortion on the ballots in Missouri and Arizona and how it would affect things. Trump disavowing himself from Project 2025. Kamala, the copycat Kamala, taking the tip tax issue away from Trump. The last one is kind of comedic, but maybe a little serious.
Okay.
The Trump on, what's it called, Spaces on Twitter? Twitter Spaces?
Oh yeah, he was
Yeah.
on. Yeah, over 1 billion impressions and views now
Yeah, but
in a day. That's a crazy number.
it is a crazy number. But,
crazy number.
Obviously there was some issues with the technology, and I don't know if you heard the lisp,
DDoS attack.
the lisp sound that Trump had about half the interview. Everything it fed with like Sylvester the cat.
Might have been a technology thing.
Yeah, it was a problem. But did you listen to it?
I did. I heard the Well, I couldn't get on at first. I had the same problem everybody else, but they were under DDoS attack. So
So what were your thoughts on that whole thing? I mean, not every little individual thing he said. I'm just talking about in general,
down.
him doing something on Twitter Spaces like that, and
I think it's brilliant.
why?
There's a whole vast universe on like X, right? There's a lot of people on X on all sides. There's everybody from the very far left to the very far right. You'll find them on X, right? We'd said about Truth before, like I like Truth Social. It's a good place to go for certain things, but realistically, you're going to hear the same opinions you already have there. You're not learning anything.
I call that a group text with Trump supporters. That's what.
And that's
think
what it
Truth
is. I mean,
Social
and that's really what it is. But it's a very conservative-leaning kind of platform, so you get very conservative-leaning views, and that's great. That's nice. It's nice to kind of see people agree with you sometimes. But I like seeing kind of across the field. I want to see everything. I want to see all different sides of things so I can evaluate them and understand them and learn. And maybe somebody on the other side makes a good point that I need to think about. So I want to see that, and you can get that on X, and you can get accurate, actual information on X. So the citizen reporting on X is like nowhere else. You can get actual media, because you have actual journalists, like real live journalists that aren't trying to push one side or the other. They're just saying, hey, here's the facts. And you'll get that on X. So I like X for that reason right now, and that's all because Elon took it over and kind of said, okay, enough with the one side or the other and silencing one side and silencing the other. He just lets people speak, and that's it. So I think Trump is smart. I mean, we said this before. He should go back to X. That's where I think that was a big part of his 2016 win was X, right? That really, that voter base that he found there really helped him spread his message, A, and B, go to the polls and get it done.
Well, I think the first part, what you said, was really the important part. That because as you do say, the media is kind of against Trump, but you have to overcome that. Just like Reagan overcame it, and others have overcome that. And I think that Twitter was Trump's way of overcoming that. In 2016, he was able to get around the media narrative because, and listen, I've never been on Twitter. I've never been on any social. This is it, YouTube. I've never had an account on any, never will. I hate that stuff. I have no interest in it. But I understand the importance of it in the world today.
It's part of the landscape.
I kind of understand how Twitter works. I've never actually seen it, but I know that he has 80-something million followers.
88 million and
Right.
counting
So
now. I think more than that now.
when he whatever, so round it 90 million, whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
whatever it is now, yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Now, when he tweets something, that automatically goes to 90 million people, right?
It goes, yeah,
and
it's like a
then
feed. Yeah.
they can retweet it.
They can
and
share it
send
out
it
to other people and send it out in their timeline,
Right.
and people on their timeline will see it.
So compare that to the 8 million, which is what I've read he has on Truth Social.
Right.
That's an enormous difference. And then the ability to retweet. The interview or conversation, Elon said it's not, and it wasn't. He wasn't asking them questions. They were just having a
No,
conversation.
they were just chatting. It was like two guys
Yeah.
chatting. It was, honestly, it was kind of like, a higher level of this maybe in some sense, in that they were just, they're more high profile people doing it.
The only thing that bothers me about that stuff is I think, when he said something, because he did say something again where I just thought it was counterproductive, going after the worker votes and everything and trying to make the Republican Party a working class party. And I know Trump, and I know Trump's not I don't know him personally. I didn't mean that. I know I know Trump's
he's not
politically.
anti-union.
He's not an anti-union dude.
He's not a union breaker, no.
No, he's not.
But he mentioned it. I think he talking about the
he
Twitter
didn't
thing
just
with
mention
Elon.
it. Was so fucking stupid, Mike. I mean, you're trying to
with the Elon thing, where he kind of
Yes.
congratulated him on just firing like,
Exactly
80 to 70% of the staff or whatever.
right. You know, and now the UAW
filed a complaint. With
I don't
labor
think that
against them.
complaint will go anywhere because.
No,
but that's not the point. The point is that again, he's handing shit to the other side. Because now that's what is, and again, it'll blow over in a day, but still, at the moment, that's what people are talking about. It was, what, 2 hours, the conversation yesterday?
Yeah, it's just
something
over
like
2 hours, yeah.
All right, so a 2-hour conversation. He had that one, you know, it wasn't one sentence, but one group of sentences, a few sentences. I personally hated what he said. I thought it was stupid. I'm a very pro-union guy. I also think it's stupid politically because, like I said, he's got to get those people. But, be that as it may, it was a few sentences out of 2 hours, but it gave the press an opportunity to grab onto that. The UAW and their president.
Well, that's what they do. Yeah. I mean, listen. No matter what, at some point he was going to say something in there they were going to latch on to.
Of course.
That happened to be it. Which I understood where he was coming from, but I think if you step back from the context of it, it can be very much used against him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But he was congratulating Elon on. I think the tone of the conversation had more to do with the fact that Elon was able to kind of strip Twitter down to its bare components and rebuild it as a much more functional app.
And he was
talking
talking
that
about
meant removing the staff.
But he was also talking about there were a couple of threats to strike at Tesla. You know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he had the car thing.
So
too. That's
he
where
was
it was. That's right. My
congratulating him on
apologies.
that.
Yeah, he was congratulating that because he kind of broke that strike.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of union busting. I'm somebody who would stand on a picket line and bust anyone's head who tries to cross it. You know, that's me. Disagree if you want. That's fine. But that's the problem with these 2-hour interviews, and that's why Kamala avoids these things, right? Because that one little clip will go out, and it'll piss me off, but I'll be fine. You know, I'll be back to him in a day. But it'll piss me off, but it might not get other people to forgive it. You know, the auto workers who are out there trying to organize in places like Tennessee and other places like that, they might not look so fondly on Trump after that. I don't know. Will it change a lot of minds? I don't know. But that's the dangerous part, and that's why I think Kamala is in hiding, and that's why I did say it's smart for now, and as long as she can.
No, it's a smart move on her part. Listen, she can't speak extemporaneously, right? She's proven that over and over again. When she tries to speak extemporaneously, one or two things happen. Either she has no idea what she's talking about, she does word salad, or she comes out and her policy ideas are completely like far left Marxist, like to the point where Stalin will be impressed.
Or she talks about school buses.
Well, you
All right, so those are the 5 headlines, guys. Comment down below. Let us know what you think. We'll respond to your comments, especially if you bring up something interesting that.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear your thoughts. You want to hear your thoughts, your opposition, whatever. Please throw it in there. Let's hear it. Let's talk about it. Let's get it going.
And Mike's going to give me his headlines in the next video, but that's the headlines for the week of August, mid-August, August 15th.
August 14th,
like August
I think
14th.
we are right now.
All right, you want to sign off?
Sure, why not?
Tell them to subscribe.
Subscribe, like, share it out, comment, let us know what you think. You know, share this video out, send it to your friends, send it to your family, send it to other people you think might be interested. Listen, let's get the conversation started. We don't care what side you're on politically. We're not going to, call you names or anything like that. That's not what we're about here. We just want to start this conversation and have this conversation. So let's have the conversation. So please like, subscribe, and let's get this thing going.
Yeah, I don't call people names, Mike, you stupid bastard. Why would you bring that up?
This guy.
Bye.
Good night, guys.